Welcome back to Mrs. Torigno's Algebra 1B Semester Exam Review. This is page 2 of the first review packet, and this video will cover questions 7 through 14. Starting with number 7, be very careful about the directions here. The directions here say to solve for y. That's not the same thing as finding the y-intercept. Solve for y means to get y by itself. I'll say that again. Solve for y means get y by itself. So we're not plugging any numbers in here. We are just moving the equation around. First thing I see is that I need to get that 3x out of the way. So I'm going to start by subtracting 3x from each side. Now remember, here on the right side, you cannot subtract 12 and 3x because they're not like terms. So I'm just going to rewrite them as negative 3x plus 12. I'm putting the x first because I know later on when we do slope-intercept form, you'll need to have the x first. If you had written it the other way, if you had written 12 minus 3x, that would not be wrong. Okay, that would be perfectly fine. And then to get rid of that negative 2, because that's multiplication, I would divide everything by negative 2. Okay? So then we end up with y equals. Now here, I've tried to get students in the habit of leaving this as a fraction. Again, because later on down the road when we're doing slope-intercept form, that number is really your slope. So I would probably cancel out my negatives here and just make that 3 over 2x. However, if you had written that as a decimal, it would be 1.5x, and that's perfectly okay too. And then 12 divided by negative 2 is negative 6. So y equals 3/2 x minus 6. And that's it. That's your final answer. Now, going back to the issue here with whether or not we should cancel out those negatives and if we should write it as a decimal, keep in mind that the majority of your exam is multiple choice. So if you solve it one way but it's listed in your choices as another way, make sure that you are flexible enough to know that 3/2 is the same thing as 1/2, or 1 and 1/2, I'm sorry, or 1.5. Okay? All right, let's move on to question number 8. This one says to solve for x. That means this time I'm getting x by itself. So x is over here. I'm going to start by moving that 3 out of the way. So here I'll end up with x plus 3. I'm sorry, y plus 3 on that left side, I misread that, is equal to 2x. And then last thing to do to get the 2 away from the x would be to just divide by 2 and divide everything by 2. Okay? You could leave this as y over 2. You could also write it as 1/2 y, that would be okay. Again, I would probably leave that 3/2 just as 3 over 2, but if you wrote it as 1.5, that wouldn't be wrong. And then that would just equal x. And that's it. That's your final answer. As long as you've got x by itself, you're done. Okay, on to number 9, a terrifying word problem. It says Mark receives an electric bill for $45 and a late fee of $2 per day is added for each day past due. Write an equation for the total bill B for each day D that the bill is delinquent. Well, here's how I would approach this. I'm looking to find the total cost of the bill. So I'm going to say B equals, because that represents the total bill. I know that it's starting at $45, and I'm adding $2 per day. So all I really need to think about is how would I represent $2 per day? Well, like I just said, I'm adding $2 per day. And that's it. That's my equation. My bill is $45 plus $2 per day. I recommend when you're doing a problem like this, after you've written your equation, read it back to yourself and make sure that it makes sense. Make sure that it says what you want it to say. Okay? Also make sure you don't have additional letters in there. I see a lot of people trying to use B and D and then X and Y at the same time. We are really just using B and D instead of X and Y. You should always only have 2 variables floating around at one time. Okay? Let's take a look at number 10 because number 10 is very similar. Number 10, we are starting with 88 degrees. It is 88 degrees at 3 o'clock. So my total temperature is 88 degrees. And then we are cooling by 2 degrees per hour. That means that we are losing, which means subtraction, 2 degrees per hour. Let's make sure this says what we want it to say. The temperature is 88 degrees, and then it's cooling by 2 degrees per hour. That's exactly what the original problem said. So again, read it back to yourself. Okay, let's take a look at number 11. Number 11, be careful about the directions. The directions are not actually asking you to evaluate this. It's asking what is the order that you should do things in. So here's all you really need to say. I would start with parentheses if I was following order of operations, and in the parentheses, that's addition. So the first thing I would do is add. Okay. Again, this is what the directions are asking you to do. It's not actually asking you to evaluate, which you certainly could if you wanted to. Okay. The second step, there's actually a couple of different things you could do for the second step. Probably what I would do if I had added together that 2 plus 5, I would go ahead and multiply by that -1. However, if you chose to jump down to the bottom of the fraction and do the exponent, that would be okay too. Okay? Step 3, I would jump downstairs and I have subtraction and a power down here. That exponent's got to come next. So I would do the squaring or the exponent next, followed by the subtraction. I'm probably writing off my screen now. Okay, and then the very last step is after we've got the top simplified and the bottom simplified is to deal with this fraction bar, which means my last step would be division. Again, probably steps 2 and 3 are interchangeable, and there may be some other correct answers as well. So if you have a question about your answer, if you think it's correct, you're welcome to see me in class and I'll look at it for you. Okay, same thing with number 12. Again, it's just asking what order would you do things in. Order of operations says I need to start with my parentheses, and inside the parentheses I see addition. Okay, so the first thing I would do is add. After parentheses comes exponents. So after I added, I would raise it to the power of 3. Let's see. After I did that, so then I would have all of this simplified. I'd be left with multiplication, subtraction, and addition. Out of those 3 things, I know that according to order of operations, I would have to multiply. Now this next part you have to be careful of, because then you would have subtraction here and addition here. Addition and subtraction go in order from left to right. So that subtraction should actually come before the addition. A lot of people make mistakes with that because they think that PEMDAS means that addition comes before subtraction. But really, addition and subtraction go together. So do multiplication and division, by the way. So if you ever ran into that, it would be a similar situation. Whichever one came first is what you would do first. Okay? Hopefully you can see all of that. All right. Let's try to get through 13 and 14. 13 and 14 are asking for you to write these in standard form, which is almost the opposite of what you were doing back up in number 7. Standard form is when x and y are together on one side of the equation and all of the constant numbers are on the other. You will have a formula for standard form on your formula sheet, but this is what it looks like. It's something times x plus something times y equals something. Okay? So for this one, to get this equation to look like that, really all I need to do is pick up this 2x and move it over here in front of the y. And to do that, I'm going to subtract 2x from each side. On this side, I'm going to write that as negative 2x plus y equals, there my x's would have canceled and I would have 1 left over there. Hopefully you can see that now this format matches this. I have something times x plus, and this is really like a 1 here in front of that y. You don't need the 1, but just so you can see how it matches up with that. Something times y equals something. Okay? On to number 14. Number 14 is going to be very similar. I would start by moving the 3x so that it's on the same side with the y. So now on this side, I would have 3x. By the way, I added 3x that time because this time the 3x was negative. So to cancel out a negative, I used a plus. Plus y minus 5 equals, and over here on the right, I just have this 2. The only thing I need to get out of the way now, because I have my x and y in place where I want them to be, is I need to move this 5 over here with the 2. So let's add 5 to both sides. Again, sorry I'm running out of room. Here's what this would look like. 3x plus y, my 5's are gone, and 2 plus 5 is equal to 7. Okay, so final answer there would be 3x plus y is equal to 7, and you can see how that matches up with the ax plus by equals c. Okay, I'm going to cut here and start fresh with the next video with problem number 15.